Yeah, I tell you, it's all about Geek Yourself, episode 7. We're here inside Play Studios. I tell you, Play Studios becoming a reality. Yeah, man. Hear the song sing, say. Just like that, it was start. COVID had a spot. People, them a rumble. Politician, them a fumble. And that is what they're doing, guys. Politician, them a fumble. Reality of situation, me say. You guys gotta go check out that song. It's called Just Like That, Them a Talk, right? Again, welcome back to Geek Yourself. This is episode 7 of Geek Yourself. And we're here. It's a Saturday evening. It's 4 o'clock on the dot. Well, it's 4:10, so I'm at 10 minutes late. But anyways, there's certain things I want to share with you, just so that you know, right? We're here. Last week we spoke about the whole Google Classroom stuff. This week we're looking at different questions that you guys might have. And so for all those people in tune, I want to spend some time today answering some of your questions. But apart from that, I can share some of the experiences we had this week. If you notice, I posted a video on a repair I did on a food processor. Somewhere in the background there, I have a food processor that I fixed. And this is just to let you guys know that it is not impossible for you to get things done on your own, right? But you have to be willing to try. We're moving into the era of you got to try to do what you can to make your life more comfortable. Meaning that you got to be more self-sustainant. You got to be more independent, right? So you hear Mario G sing about independent woman. So I sing about independent people, right? Meaning you have to do you. You have to make sure everything is right. You have to make sure you can do it for yourself, right? And of course, these are times that you have to look out for yourself and ensure that everything is okay, right? So I do want to start about talking about some of the things that I'm seeing over the course of the week, which is people reaching out to me talking about, all right, I can't really get through to the Google Classroom. They say, I can't get through to that Google Classroom. And I do understand that some parents are using the phone, right? And so if you're using the phone, it means that you have to install Google Classroom as a app. Now, do remember that a lot of the Google tools come as an app that you can install. And so make sure that if you're working off your phone, and of course the definition of computer is any electronic device that can input, output, process, and storage, right? And so if you're working off your phone, know that you can install Google Classroom. Now the difference is that if you're working off an old Android, and Android comes in different what I would call versions. If you're working off some of the older versions of Android, it means that you might have to do some update on your phone. I encourage you that if you're, let's say you're using an A10 phone, you might need to do some updates before you start operating in the Google Classroom scenario. So it is essential that you do that. Now, particularly what I want to touch today is some of the issues that people are facing where you're saying that, oh, you know what, I no longer have access to Microsoft Word. I no longer have access to Excel. I don't have access to Access Database. It means then that there must be an alternative that you can follow in order to get the work done. Now, I'm here today to tell you what the alternative is. And the alternative is that you can install something on your Android device, something called Open Office, right? So remember the name. It's Open Office, right? Now, Open Office contains all your word processor, your spreadsheet, your database software, your email software, your email client. So just because we see, for example, Hotmail and Yahoo Mail and Gmail, and we can access those via the website, we can also have third-party software. They're called third-party software that can assist you in signing into your email. Now, we can have something called an open source software, and I spoke about open source software in the last episode of Geek Yourself, where we're saying that these are the software that are essentially free for us as users, but the code for those software, they're out there and anybody can use them, right? So open source software, one of the main open source software that I do encourage you to use is Open Office. So it means if you want to write a letter to someone, you can use Open Office. If you want to do a spreadsheet, for example, in terms of your budget or any other mathematical system that you want to go through, you can use I don't know if it's called Open Spreadsheet, right? But it's one of the Open Office tools that you can use. And in terms of creating database, the concept remains the same, where you have tables, forms, reports, and queries, and you can do all those in the open source software available under Open Office. So don't feel like you're restricted only to the software that is sold by Microsoft, which is pretty expensive. But from what I'm reading, and I read some article earlier stating that Office 365 is practically free now. It just needs for you to sign in to the Microsoft network, which means that you have to create a Microsoft account. Now keep in mind, just as how you would have created a Gmail because you want to use Gmail products, it means that you have to create a Microsoft account because you want to use Microsoft products. So Office 365 comes at that expense where you're giving out your information to Microsoft. But again, keep in mind that you're using these tools. These tools are essential to you. You're getting work done, which is why you signed up for Gmail anyway. You sign up for Gmail because you want the free storage. And of course, I can say this, that nothing is really free, right? They're taking your information and using it under some regime, right? But the option is there. You have the option for Open Office that you can use. Let me see if I can show you guys and that's my screen. I can show you what I'm talking about specifically. So this is, let me move this over. This is the Open Office website. And so if I were to start over, if I Googled Open Office as a search, it would give me openoffice.org, which is what I want, right? And so if I click on openoffice.org, it then gives me the different releases of Open Office that are available to us. And so I can choose then to download the one that is most applicable to me. Now keep in mind that they're available for both Apple and Android product. But I'm saying this because I don't want you to feel like you're restricted to the Office product in terms of Microsoft Office product, but know that you can also download an open source software for creating documents, for working with spreadsheets, for creating database, for checking emails, right? So we're not restricted to all the paid versions. Keep in mind that the whole IT world won't restrict you to a paying version. Now, if you're using Apple, also Open Office is free, and so you can use that as a free software for your work. If you're using Android, Open Office is also free. But what I can tell you is that if you're using Google, there is stuff like Google Docs that and this of course is free. And if you have signed in, of course, with a Google account, a Gmail account, or a domain that Google controls, it means that you can use those software pieces for free, right? And so you have the whole Open Office scenario that is free. Again, if I can touch quickly on open source software, just so you understand, right? Open source software is a software that, in a nutshell, it means that the code or the source code is available for most computer users, and so you can edit this to fit your company needs. And so I can tell you this, that most software that you're operating on, and this is what they don't tell you, that most software that you're operating on falls under the realm of an open source software. And I look back at the example of, and I'm a big user of Jitsi, it means that I was using Jitsi as an open source software. But when I jump into Google Meets, I realized that This looks like an open source software, and so it means that they're using the same platform that everybody else is using, right? Also, when you look at some of the software that your phone company uses, their internet service provider, and they're running major servers, but their servers are run on Linux systems or Unix systems. If you notice, and you can ask anybody who works with a telecom company, ask them what operating system are they using to manage their internet service provisions, right? They won't tell you it's Windows. Windows is a paid software. They'll probably tell you, oh, I'm using a software like Ubuntu. Ubuntu is a form of Linux software that is used. They'll probably tell you I'm using something like Open Unix, right? And those are a form of open source software that people use. So if I am to look at softwares or operating systems like Linux or Linux, as some people pronounce it, it means that I'm looking at softwares like Ubuntu, right? And they're saying that all of these, and I'm telling you that all of these are used in terms of your telecom system. And so you might hear about Linux Mint, you might hear about Maharo, you might hear about Debian, you might hear about Ubuntu, and Ubuntu is popular amongst desktop users. You might hear about Fedora, and Fedora again was very popular amongst users, and OpenSUSE, or OpenSUSE, some people might pronounce it, right? And these are all pretty much in line with what you do as a Windows users, which means you're using something called a graphical user interface to get around and do your work. Now, what I don't want you to feel afraid of working with some of these tools, just like how you could have gotten used to Windows, and some of you might not realize it, but your phone runs an operating system called Android operating system. So your desktop computer, your laptop computer runs an operating system called Windows. And so you're used to that. So if anybody tells you about anything else, you feel like you're lost, right? But I'm telling you that your phone or any other Android device that you may have runs a different operating system. And you know what? You also get used to it. And a lot of people don't realize is that your operating system, just because you grew up with it, you got used to it. In this case, your phone uses Android operating system, right? So that's another operating system that you can use to run and do whatever work you need. Problem is, a lot of people are used to the Windows operating system. Android, for example, these are operating systems found on most smartphones, along with, of course, Apple, which has their own operating system, the Mac OS and so forth, that is found on their smartphones. So Android 11 is the new operating system in terms of Android, and these are found on the smartphones that you may have issued. And you may have noticed something, and this is my opinion, that Android is leading the way now in terms of software development. So while we do have Apple leading way of hardware development, Android is leading the way in terms of software development. So, and you can be the judge. Look at some of the new tools that Apple is offering. Apple will tell you now, oh, we have this type of menu available. We now have transparent apps and so forth. Those are tools that were implemented to Android some years ago. So the cycle is shifting in terms of who is leading the industry, right? So Android is taking over and Apple is struggling in terms of the software. Now, they are writing software specific to hardware that they build, but again, that's a complicated topic that we're not going into for this show, right? So just know that there are tools available to you, and this is specifically what the show is about. There are tools available to you called open source tools that you can use, right? Apart from that, for some reason, people feel like the only browser available to you is the Google browser, But there is also something called Mozilla Firefox. Now, Mozilla Firefox, of course, is another type of browser, right? It's an open source web browser. And of course, the improvement continues on this type of browser. So don't feel like the Google Chrome is the only browser available to you. And if you get your computer brand new, it may come with this type of browser. It's called Microsoft Edge. It is a predecessor of Microsoft Internet Explorer, right? So there is Chrome, which we're used to, and you have to install. And there is Mozilla Firefox, and Mozilla Firefox does bring a lot more tools. Now, if you ask me, I am an avid user of Google Chrome simply because of the tools that Chrome offers to me, right? And so you can use Google Chrome then in that scenario for your browsing. Somebody asked about web browsing and what are some of the main search tools that you would use. Now we know that Google is one of the major search tools used throughout the world, but there is also DuckDuckGo, which is another major search tool that is being used. So we have several options available to us in terms of search tools, in terms of browsers. It is up to us which one we particularly want to use. Now keep in mind again, Firefox browser is open source software. I trust it because it is managed throughout the world, right? Good. So Android software, Mozilla Firefox. We have OpenOffice for people who want a particular free software. And I'm saying all this simply because our country now is setting regulations. Let me make sure I show my face. Our country is setting regulations in terms of our cybersecurity laws that are put in place. But I can't say I don't think they realize. They do know some of the implications it will have. Now, if you're working with pirated software, this is where you have to change it. You have to start purchasing software. I was telling somebody earlier that hardware has become cheaper than software. And so, yes, you can get a tablet for $100, right? In fact, you can get a tablet for $50 US. It means that you're paying for software. I can buy a bare bones system, it's called, for $200, but I will have to pay $400 for software. So we can see where the expense of software comes in, right? So I can buy, for example, Microsoft Windows 10, right? And let me see if there's a price list. All right, so I can buy a Microsoft Windows 10 for approximately $200 US. And so it means I'm paying like $400 Belize for a Microsoft Windows 10, right? No, that's pretty expensive. So if you're buying software, it is expensive. If you're using legit software, it is expensive. I know I have had people approach me about QuickBooks and other accounting software available. It is expensive for you to deal with software, right? So these are just some of the things I wanted to discuss today on Geek Yourself. I wanted to kind of remind you about what are open source software so that you know that it is available to you. I wanted to kind of remind you as to why I promote open source software, and that is because of how free it is, right? So all of these are available to us. It doesn't mean you have to pay for certain products. But like always, guys, go out, have fun. This is a short show today. It's called Geek Yourself. We're at episode 7. Be safe.